Welcome back, everyone, to our latest Town Hall version 0.10. Super excited. We're here in 2024. I had queued up some fireworks, but I don't think they're working. So here's confetti. Yeah, what do you think? A little confetti drop. Yes, it is the new year. I'm super stoked because Michigan won the national championship, so it's the start of a good year. This weekend, we have Detroit Lions in the playoffs for the first time in my memory, even though I think they have been since I've been alive. But super good time for me in Michigan, kind of coming out. And today we have Lyle on the show. What's up, Lyle?
Hey, how you doing?
We were just reminiscing a little bit about AWS and kind of coming back from that. And I was bragging when I got back from AWS. I don't know about yourself, but most of the team got sick, I think, because we met like 40,000 people and probably shook 30,000 hands, something like that.
Yeah.
And I probably did the wrong thing because I went on vacation for the holidays and promptly got sick, which sucks. So bear with me, folks, as I get through this one. My voice is hopefully gonna make it through the whole thing. But in the new year, we have no new releases yet, but Lyle kind of gave me a wink and a nod that there's something coming out soon. The only post that we have up so far is our OAuth mobile. So if you know anyone in the OAuth mobile space, definitely check this out. It's accompanied by a video right down here. You can click play. So that as our OAuth mobile setup, just a nice little breakdown that I wrote out here. Dan gets all the props for this one, as always. Dan walks through just kind of this fake like UBIFT, which is kind of like a Lyft and what's the word I'm looking for?
Uber,
Uber. There
all
we go.
combined together. Yeah.
Uber and Lyft combined together, and kind of breaks down what it takes for a mobile app and things like that to go through FusionAuth. So super excited on that one. As I mentioned in the past, and probably the core of what we're talking about today, we have updated our docs as well. So for those just hitting them, you might remember our old ones, and Lyle's going to show some of that off as we get started here. But before we get too far, Lyle, I just wanted to give you a chance to tell us a little bit more about yourself and kind of your journey to get to FusionAuth. Do you mind breaking that down a little bit for us?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So, I've been a developer for a decade and change now at this point. I sort of started a little bit later than other people. I went and got a psychology degree out of the University of Colorado. Ended up, kind of working retail for a few years, and then went back to school to go get a master's. And
So I have to be more careful around you if you have a psychology degree. Like now I know that. Oof.
I've already analyzed you thoroughly and have come to some troubling conclusions that we can get into later.
Great, perfect.
But yeah, did the little bit later career change thing. Then started working for some companies with some healthcare software, and have done a few different jobs in between. I started at FusionAuth a little bit over a year ago. I specifically sought them out looking at the built-in Colorado website. Was looking for somebody that was, a bit smaller, had sort of that startup feel to them still, but still was, kind of an established product, something that I understood and felt like I, believed in and could contribute to. And, I've been kind of a full stack developer. I've done the authentication journey a couple of different times, and it's always fun. It's always confusing. It's always, trickier than it needs to be. And I was like, man, I get it. I understand, auth by developers for developers, like totally makes sense to me. So, I was at the end of 2022. I joined the team, and here I am now.
But I know just from the work that you do at FusionAuth, you've always been like a big front end guy. Is that the case? Kind of when you were making that transition, or was it something else that you kind of got into for programming first?
I mean, I've always been a little bit of a full stack person. I started as a backend Java developer, but then as you sort of build out a little bit of internal tooling here and there, for the company, and you find out that there's value in being able to show rather than tell. With certain things, and there's just magic by putting a clickable button in front of somebody and watching them go like, ooh, wow, so I've played with that a little bit more. I will say that like I myself don't have an eye for design and what makes a site pretty as much as some other people do. So I will heavily lean on those who do have an affinity for, what the proper UX and look and feel should be. And then I will do my best to make it happen, kind of in the way that they tell me it ought to be. Right.
I'm the same way. I couldn't design myself out of a paper box. Box. See,
Paper box or a paper bag. Paper box is probably a little
head's-
harder, but
it's not there yet, man. I'm telling you. You prompted something in my memory bank here that we posted out on socials about built in Colorado. Super excited to say I'm making the wrong screen bigger. 2024 list, winning workplace, the best places to work. I thought that was super exciting.
I mean, we give everybody bucket hats. What more do you want?
No, I'm so sad I missed this picture too. I'm gonna miss our ski pic too, which is a huge bummer, but
we'll get you photoshopped in there. It'll work.
Definitely. That sounds good. Okay, let's get into the meat of it a little bit. So we had an old site, and from what I know of it, there was AS docs that were involved. And for those who have never written it, please don't. Like, that's just my personal opinion. It's no fun to write. You probably weren't around when they made that choice, right?
Oh
That was
no,
before
yeah,
our time?
that's been around for years and years. And to be fair, like, so this was our existing previous doc site was written in Jekyll and ASCII doc for the most part, and it's fine. It works pretty well. It's pretty fast, and if you happen to like working in that particular environment, it gets the job done and it does it. But I think our doc's looking a little stale, getting ready to do an update, and I think we thought that there were more fun environments to do some authoring in. So I think the decision was made. Hey, let's try out Astro is kind of the new hotness on the street these days, and went that direction instead.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. So for those who haven't checked out Astro yet, one of the reasons that we kind of went down that road is you can also plug into it with different frameworks, essentially. So you can use React, you can use Svelte, you can use basically anything you want. It's an island-based architecture that comes through that. But it also allowed us to use, I'm completely blanking on the name right now. I want to say MD Specs, which is wrong. MDX.
MDX, Markdown Extended. Yeah. Which gets us to something like what ASCII doc does in the simple markup, for content, but allows you to then do some, more dynamism and, give you drop in some components and stuff in there too. So you can make it as complicated as you want, which we like to do. So
yeah, definitely. And we use it quite thoroughly, like when we're writing articles for DevRel. So we have some like not Plant UML. We were just talking about Plant UML, some UML type stuff that we plug into components. And then the cool part is we can just import those directly in what basically is a markdown document. So maybe we can check some of that out. But I did ask Lyle can you share the old and the new? So he's going to kind of show off what our site used to look like and what it is today. And we can probably even break down a little bit of the code if we have time, but we just wanted to talk more in general of like why we went down the Astro road. Definitely performance has been amazing, if you ask me. So we're also able to plug a few new things in too. So we have some like spell checking going on. We have, what else do we check? We check local links to make sure we're not kind of putting fusion.io / in it hard coded, so they can go to our different sites as they post through both development, staging, whatever we need it to.
Yeah.
Cool.
So what I have up here, this is an example of our old doc site. So I still keep a local copy of it around for reference and making sure we kept the content more or less the same. So you can see like this doesn't look bad, but it's got a little bit of an older kind of feel to it, and you've got like this funky nav chip here that lets you sort of navigate the headings and things, and this fun little like accelerating scroll that we do when you click on one of the headers. But like, hey, we've got some screenshots, we've got some code blocks, you can copy them, it's all fine. We got this navigate back up to the top button, and then we could kind of see your navigation around the site, kind of this way, and it worked. It was fine. But we wanted to update the look and feel and do something new. So over here on this other tab, this is that same page. And now as we have it in kind of the new Astroified layouts and that kind of thing. So, the first thing to note here is basically it's the same content. So we tried as hard as we could to keep it more or less the same. That way we didn't have to go and rewrite every single page of content that we have, and there's quite a bit of it. But we rearranged the navigation, so all of our URLs kind of changed to where stuff is. You can now sort of, so you've got the side nav over here that lets you, kind of go to different places and, load them up and that kind of thing. Our navigation that wasn't that chip is now in a proper side nav that will let you kind of, bounce around the page and do that kind of thing. Code blocks look a little bit nicer. Still have the copy button, all that kind of stuff. Navigation's kind of changed, so a little bit cleaner look and feel up here at the top. And most important is dark mode, right? So we have the ability to switch back and forth and use the system preferences, but themable that way.
Yeah, very cool. Sarah Rainsberger, which I believe she is the lead at community for Astro. She has a great question asking about did we use Starlight or roll your own? Currently, we rolled our own. So I think, Lyle, did we have this discussion, or was I talking to somebody else about the potential of like what we might be able to do in the future?
Yeah. So we didn't look at Starlight, and I'm trying to think. So
I
we
think
initially
it became
started
more after we started, right?
Right. We actually started having these talks kind of earlier in the summer last year.
Yeah.
And then, it takes a while to plan and then get everything rolling to get it implemented. And we'd already started doing some stuff. So I think Starlight came out later than we had started talking about doing the work. I definitely looked at it later, and it looks like a good idea, but we kind of already had the ball rolling by the time we were going.
I think we chatted a little bit kind of offline with the new 4.0 improvements and kind of I think they call it the content folder. It's got a better name than that. Something API, content API, something like that. It'll actually do some caching mechanisms in there too. So there's probably some updates that we'll end up doing periodically as we kind of keep building this out. So the build times become interesting, right? So we don't have a massive site, but we probably will keep adding content, and as we go, content collections. Thank you, Louise. Yeah, content collection. So as that build kind of starts to come through, if you only change one document and that's all you need to update, it can just compile that single one and then kind of come out. So I think our build times aren't that bad right now. Do you happen to know?
Yeah, I think all this stuff all together, I think still clocks in at under 10 minutes. I want to say it was like 7 or something last time I checked.
Yeah.
And that's for, running through the render of the hundreds of pages that we have. We have a lot of image assets that we, occasionally need to do some resizing on. So it's not terrible by all means. Astro is pretty fast. It's from a development perspective, waiting that long to see the full build go can take a minute. Thankfully, Astro in dev mode really will just render the page that you're working on while you're sitting in front of it, which is really, really nice. Yeah. But when you want to make sure that everything didn't break, that can take a minute or two. And it's on my checklist here to get us updated to Astro 4 and start playing with all the new shiny tools post haste.
Yeah. I was gonna say, so let's talk a minute about the conversion, what scripts we had to run, and then we'll break into kind of some more about what's next kind of thing.
Yeah, so I think the biggest challenge with what we did, so I don't know if anyone who's done a migration from one framework to another will probably know that in the initial stages of that, you have the conversation about, okay, so do we need to touch and rewrite every single thing that we have, or is there a way that we can kind of do a migration and kind of port it over for like an app? Yeah, that usually lands on you want to end up rewriting everything, because I've never done a framework migration that went perfectly well and didn't have stuff exploding. For content, you can get away with a little bit more of what we ended up doing was scripting a lot of it. So we had, ASCII doc directives and markup and that kind of stuff, which, we then parsed out the raw pages that we had, converted them into Markdown and some Astro components as appropriate, and kind of did a little bit on the fly. So we definitely had some learnings as we were going through the migration portion of it, but we tried to automate of it as much as we can. And then, of course, there's a little bit of hand massaging and touching towards the end of it that, you try and make sure you completely miss something or blow it up
Right.
after you move those pages.
And the initial designs, some of the coding side of things, CSS, we're using Tailwind, right?
We are. Yeah, that was, kind of one of the earlier decisions, and that just keeps you from having to really fight with global styles and, end up like playing that whack-a-mole game of I fixed it over here and now this thing's out of alignment again. And, Tailwind does really keep things nice and scoped.
Yeah, some of the great parts about Tailwind, I was just watching kind of their releases. I'm gonna drop the name. Let me see if I have it handy. I do not. Anyways, there's some new build tools coming out, and so when you take some of the new stuff coming in for like colors as well, so when you put in like just a hex code, let's say, actually it's probably reverse of that. So when you start to put in some of the newer CSS codes, it'll actually output both the hex and that, and then based on the browser, it'll actually start to use that. And so those are kind of the frameworky things that, well, I don't know if framework's the right word, but some of the utilities that you start to be able to utilize within Tailwind that comes out of it too. So it's a nice marriage, if you ask me, between using Astro and Tailwind, and then being able to use some of the different components that we'll end up using as well as we continue to grow in the space. So it's really exciting. So some of the additional hiccups, what are we down to on like PR issues for the conversion, would you say?
I think if anyone's really diligent, they go poking around, there's probably a piece of text here that
Yeah.
missed the formatter or the conversion because, regex only gets you so far.
You did some great work though, folks. I mean, like you converted a ton of pages in a very short period.
Yeah, and I can't remember what the exact count was, but I mean, there were hundreds of between the, the main technical documentation between our guides and all that stuff. There's hundreds of pages in there, and we had actually done the blog migration prior to that, which is another hundreds of kind of blog articles that we'd migrated, and we did kind of in a similar fashion. The blogs tend to be a little bit simpler because there's a lot less dynamism going on in blog content, but for our stuff we had API, documentation that's relatively bespoke as far as FusionAuth is concerned, and making sure that things like the required attributes and the types and everything get converted over. There's a lot going on in there.
And that's a great point. When we talk about our APIs, I don't know that we're quite there yet, but like there's some automation that happens that pulls directly from our internal repos, right, to create our API docs.
We don't do that for our API documentation, actually. So most of the stuff that we have on the site is still human authored. We generate out OpenAPI, and a lot of our client libraries are dynamically generated, but the actual documentation on the site is still by hand for the most part.
Yeah, I think in the future, and this is probably why I'm confusing, we're hoping to take some of those OpenAPI specs and actually convert those out to code that you actually see in our docs, which is exciting to me as someone that has to update this stuff all the time. Anything that we can automate in that way is great. I did want to bring up another fan of early adopter of Starlight. It kind of reminded me we should probably at least tell people about Starlight since they haven't seen it. So I'm sharing the wrong screen. There we go. So this is kind of the Starlight page when people are talking about this. When you start to look at this, it is actually quite incredible, and so it's definitely something to look at. I don't know if we'll be perfectly in tune for what we do at FusionAuth, but for like my personal site and things like that, definitely check it out. Starlight's a pretty impressive toolkit that you can start to get into. And there's another guide in here somewhere. I just read it the other day, but it gives you a lot of like baked in niceness just directly out of the box. So you don't have to do a lot of the manual setup pieces. And then you can extend it past that too. So definitely check out Starlight if you haven't started your project. I like the docs by hand for the win. Yes. That's why I stay employed, I think, is docs by hand. What else am I missing here? So there's some Astro things that we did. We actually ran two different doc sites or not doc sites, but like parts of our sites. So we have kind of like a Webflow thing going on for marketing pages. That's so marketing can kind of run off and do their crazy things. And then we have our doc site. Our blog was actually brought into that at the next point. So that's Astro as well. Is there anything else that is non-Astro that I'm forgetting about now?
Yeah, for a while we had that mix, but I think for the most part, yeah, you're accurate in saying, a lot of our marketing and sort of brochure type stuff tends to be still kind of in Webflow. But almost anything that's on fusionoth.io/docs or our blog or some of the articles that we've got, all of that stuff's in Astro for the most part now. And even some of our fun little example sites that we've spun up for demos here and there for different things are still all Astrofied at this point. So it's kind of fun. Yeah.
Like we have another Astro person floating around. I must have hit the right Twitter feed finally. So
Yeah.
I always mess up the name. I think it's Elian. So DX at Astro, I believe. So shout out. Hello. Thanks for checking out the cast today. What are the next steps for you for like 2024? What's happening with the rest of the Fusion Auth site? I know we don't have a full roadmap, but there must be some things coming down the pipe that you're like, I'm excited to get moving on, including Astro 4.0. What else is in there?
Yeah, Astro 4.0 is, like I said, on the short list of things that I want to get done. There's always going to be a handful of little cleanup things that we want to go and do. I think that, we want to make some improvements to how we're doing search on the site. I think that we're going to have some more stuff related to how a user comes in, is able to navigate around and sort of move through the journey of working with FusionAuth from sort of being a new user who's getting implemented, for the first time to somebody who's trying to do all the advanced things and, get into the real nitty gritty, edge cases of FusionAuth. We want to make it so that those people, whoever they are, can get in and get around the site and find what they need to. So I know that we have some future stuff that's going to be coming in around kind of finding the content.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak about it too much because it's all kind of still up in the air, but yeah, that kind of thing.
No, that makes sense. Some good questions here. So are docs fully static, hybrid, or server-side rendered? And then are you using interactive islands or just web components?
We right now have almost everything is server-side rendered. There's or statically rendered, rather.
Everything was statically rendered.
Sorry, I said that wrong. No, static rendered. Okay. Almost everything's static. We have a little bit of JavaScript peppered in here and there, but we do almost no new web components or anything else. There's one or two pages that will sort of dynamically render stuff as the user interacts with it, but almost everything is statically rendered ahead of time.
And there are some Astro components directly that we're using, and one of them is actually in that blog post that I just showed. Let me add that back. So inside of here, this is actually a YouTube component, and you'll notice, let me see if I refresh this. Yeah, so if I actually refresh, it's probably really hard to tell on here, but it's actually a very compressed image that comes out for this YouTube cover. So that way you get faster load times. And when you click it, see how it kind of refreshed? It actually loads the full iframe afterwards on top of that. So that's one example of an Astro component that we're using. We're using some different image resizing, not components, but there's a tool that actually runs. It's like an image sharp type of thing that runs beforehand. So it's a lot smaller. It is not ImageIt. I can't remember what that one is. I'd have to go dig around. So I'll get back with you on that one for sure, Luis. Let's see here. Another questions. Oh, just comments. We're gonna have a lot of fun on 4.0. I completely agree. The new dev toolbar is pretty sweet. I've checked it out for my stuff. It's pretty awesome. It almost makes me, all the stuff going on with Astro makes me want to switch off just direct Svelte kit over to Astro for the majority of my stuff. But I've rewritten our Coding Cat site so many times. I don't want to go down that page again. Yeah. I'm just trying to think. It feels like so much because anytime you take a site that it was kind of aging, like it was getting a little outdated and bring it to new, and then also try to keep up with all the new niceness that comes with it, like Astro 4.0 and things like that, can be a challenge. But I think we've hit a lot of it. But I'm eager. I'm gonna open it up for Q&A if anyone has any additional questions. And in the meantime, I'm just gonna ask Lyle what's in the container behind you. That looks like a human brain.
I have a brain in a jar. So I think I mentioned before we started recording, or no, we talked about it. Yeah, I graduated with a psychology degree, and I have a brain in a jar on my shelf. I've called it Agnew. So if you catch the Futurama reference there, good on you. But yeah, and then I've been rearranging stuff, so my shelves are a little empty right now. I'll fill them back up with junk here in short order. So
you gotta be books. You gotta pretend you're smart.
Right.
I had somebody on the podcast the other day. On my Coding Cat podcast, and I was like, "Oh, do you like the Steve Jobs book?" Because it was behind him. They're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's behind you." And they're like, "Oh no, I haven't read that." I was like, "Okay, that works." So, yeah, just a couple more fun comments. Who doesn't rewrite the entire site? We're not gonna do that because it's a lot of work. So our engineering team needs to spend time on all of the fun Fusion auth stuff we're working on. But wink, wink, I do love rewriting our sites. Let's see. Are you planning on using view transitions for your docs? Oh, great question. I do love view transitions and what they can do and like switch and morph and like kind of make things happen. But I don't see this for our docs. Do you?
Not for the content that we have in front of us. I want to play with some of these cool things, and once you show people how some of these things work and give them ideas, right? Then they come back to you and they're like, "Man, wouldn't it be cool if on this page we did this kind of thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, view transitions are good for that." I don't think we have any open cases where we want to use that quite yet.
I'm actually a little scared to show it to our design team because then they'd be like, yes, we want that. It's like, oh, hang on, whoa, that occasionally could add a few more bugs than we care about. Like, let's just get stuff statically out there. At the end of the day, and I always say this, like, you have to know your product and what you're working on. Our product is not our docs, but it's a very important part of our product. So we want to make sure that information and the technology that's on there works and works correctly and quickly. At the end of the day, our core product, which is written in Java and comes out as a Docker image and things like that, that's what's most important. So our engineering team probably spends 95% of their time, maybe higher than that, on our core product. A lot of the content that you see out here is either on DevRel side, or we have marketing doing blog posts and things like that from the doc side of things. So there's probably other things that we'll start to get into, and the engineering team will have to spend some cycles on to update this site, but it's not like our core thing to work on. Like Lyle, I'm sure you're working on other stuff, right?
Yeah, but I mean, so to put it into perspective, we're not a huge team at Fusion Auth developers wise. There's only a small handful of us, and so as we do feature development, as we fix bugs, as we do that kind of stuff, we are also the ones who are in there authoring the documentation. So we wanted a tool set that worked well for us as developers, that didn't require such a massive context shift that your brain is totally scrambled when you decide to shift back into doing the other thing. And that gives you, a tight feedback loop and, kind of the workflow that we all like just as developers and doing that thing. And honestly, Astro really does deliver on that. There's quirks here and there, but like I enjoy working in it.
Yeah. Some good discussion kind of back and forth. I don't know if you're reading through the feed here, but great points, by the way, as far as just not even using the animations, but just kind of the fallback and swap for the initial loads and things like that.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's interesting. We'll have to bring that back in. I'll drop it in our issues list of
Yeah.
maybe mark it as a feature. So
I'll definitely go check it out. Like I said, I haven't spent a ton of time with it or, digesting it. So I will definitely go and look at view transitions and see what they can do for us.
it's kind of funny because I was thinking, I guess Astro had some of this built in, like hover on a link, doesn't it preload? I could test it real quick and see here. Let's see. Open up the old network panel. Here, might as well do this on screen since we're talking about it. Reload the page. I don't know why I was looking for PNGs, but that's kind of funny. So if I scroll over those, clear. So if I scroll over any of this, oh, it's not loading. Interesting. So maybe I'm getting my Svelte kit stuff in my head. Usually, like on hover, you'll start to load these pages in the background and get that niceness. So we'll definitely look at that now that I understand kind of what you guys are talking about. Cool.
Yeah, we got a question in there about what our search solution is that we're using.
Yeah.
So as we did this transition, we've started with page find for the moment, which itself does a pretty good job in that it is really, really fast at indexing. I think I would like to get a little bit better at working with it in terms of optimizing the results and how they pop up, especially kind of where you are in the doc site. So I have some learning I think I'd still like to get out there in terms of how to make it go a little bit better in terms of giving you the stuff that you need. But in terms of a quick solution that works pretty well and is really, really fast, yeah, that's what we're using.
Yeah, for sure. Good to know. So I didn't realize the prefetch was a config option. I thought that was on by default. So yeah, prefetch add new transitions. Yep. Yeah, see, that's kind of what I was thinking too, just adding the prefetch without view transitions. So we'll definitely take a peek at that for sure. I totally thought we had that on, by the way. So that's a good one to know. Well, I had something click in my head and it completely jumped out. Hey, Kevin. How are you, Kevin? Hello. There was something I was going to talk about on the kind of the Astro side of things for search. I completely dropped it in my head now. I got nothing. I hate dead air, so I'm just going to say sorry, folks.
Well, it's okay. We'll get somebody to do the indexing on your thoughts and be able to search them a little bit better. And
I just was chatting with Algolia. Why can't they index my thoughts? It was something around where FusionAuth was. Oh, that's what it was. So Astro has introduced languages. So that's something as FusionAuth kind of continues to grow. Now that we have a little bit of cash that was thrown our way, it's exciting that our team is growing. So we only have around 30 like 30 extra, like 32, 35 people at this point. And we're growing this year. So something, no promises. And like, this means nothing, but I'd be excited to see us start to do some more multilingual pages as well. It's a little challenging when it comes to docs and things like that to get it right as a largely based English team, but we're definitely heavily US, but we have, a lot of properties around the world because it's nice that FusionAuth can be spun up in a single instance and it's, completely compliant. So you can drop in the entire FusionAuth instance over in Europe and you're safe to stay in Europe then and things like that. So I think that as multilingual becomes more important, we'll start to look at that in Astro too, which will be great.
Yeah. You say right now it's all in English, and I don't know if we have any immediate plans to add multilingual support, but that would be nice. Yeah.
It'll definitely have to happen because
for sure.
of how large we'll get, but we're not quite there yet. Interesting. I don't know what this question means, but something about page find. Maybe that was the indexing question. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. This is exactly what I was talking about. The I18N routing. Yeah. For sure. We will
Yeah.
definitely be looking into that as we get there.
Thanks, Matt.
I like the Alex 2. Can you psychology? Can you read into that a little bit? Was that like oh yeah, Alex is here still kind of thing?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I bribed him to say that before the show.
Oh, okay. As long as you bribed him, that's that's all I need. Yep, 100%. Translation is a great way to build community. Yeah, and our community is growing like crazy internationally, so that's why I think it'll become important. It's just, again, it's one of those challenges. Like now, you need to hire someone that's natively speaking that language and things like that. I've gone through that with some other companies I was DevRel for. It can be definitely challenging, but also much needed as you grow, for sure. So it'll be exciting. Well, with Matt's comment, I think he's probably nudging me to say, Lyle, you're awesome, but let's cut it off. I think you're right, Matt, and it's probably true. Thanks for everyone for joining our Town Hall version 0.10. Maybe I should have went full on 1.0, but once Dan approves this for full-time town halls, it could happen. What do you think, Lyle?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this still feels like a V0.10 to me. We'll get there.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. I hope you try out Astro and definitely check out our docs. And if there's anything you need updated, go to our GitHub page. I added a link so you can update any part of our doc whenever you want. And just drop into our Slack whenever you want and say a quick hello to Lyle or myself. So thanks for joining Town Hall. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
When you build an app, writing a login, registration, and user management system seems simple. But pretty soon you're implementing complex standards like OAuth, OpenID Connect, and SAML. Plus, you'll need to build out additional login features. And don't forget all the acronyms you need to comply with. Secure Auth is not optional, but the time that it takes to build it is. Save time and use FusionAuth. FusionAuth provides authentication, authorization, and user management for any app. It's built for devs to deploy anywhere and integrate with anything in minutes. Seriously, anywhere, anything, and in minutes. FusionAuth installs on any platform, any device, anywhere in the world, including AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and other clouds. And it scales to hundreds of millions of users. To keep user data safe, FusionAuth provides all the controls you need to manage passwords and comply with security requirements and regulations. When users log in with FusionAuth, they'll see your brand, not ours. Theme login pages, style emails, and localized messages to ensure your brand is front and center. And FusionAuth comes with a pre-built management UI to manage and report on users. So stop grinding on Auth and go build something awesome. Get started using FusionAuth for free. Wait, for free? Are we sure that's supposed to be like that?